very warm welcome to everyone to this discussion as part of this very important conference that we're having. Our topic for this colloquium discussion, let me first introduce myself. I'm Professor Robbie van Niekerk. I'm the Chair of Public Governance at Wits University. And I'll be chairing the discussion today. My area of expertise is in social policy and social change and Black intellectual thought. So the actual topic for today is building bridges between Africa and its diaspora and considerations of the establishment of a Pan-African network or organization. Of course, it's obvious to say that the world is in a deep crisis, a crisis of thinking, a crisis of organization, a crisis of solidarity. It manifests itself in various ways. Africa needs to be at the forefront of building ideas on social change, moving us into the future. It also needs to be at the forefront for the continent and the continent's interests. Essential to this is the link between the continent and its diasporic communities. And this particular discussion today will focus in on how we can achieve this objective and what are the fault lines for our thinking and engagement on this concern. And we have a very august panel with us today to help shed some insights and to share their own views on these matters. And what I'll suggest is that we'll give each of the panelists an opportunity to give a 10-minute presentation to share their thoughts and ideas. And then if you could please, if you have any questions for the panelists or any observations, if you could please place this in the chat. And then I will convey this to the panelists and they'll make some concluding comments at the end. So without further ado, I'd like our first panelist to make an input, and that's Professor Adebayo Olukushi, who holds a PhD in politics from the University of Leeds and a bachelor's degree in international studies from Ahmadu Bello University. He has more than 35 years of experience in the area of political economy, international relations, democratic governance, and higher education, both in the academic sector and in intergovernmental institutions. He was a member of the African Union and at various times chair of the boards of several think tanks, including the European Center for Development Policy Management, the CODIS RIA Scientific Committee, and the West African Civil Society Institute. He also previously served as Director for African and West Asia of the International Institute for Democracy and Electoral Assistance. He was Director of the UN African Institute for Economic Development and Planning, Interim Executive Director of the African Governance Institute, Executive Secretary of the Council for Development of Social Science Research in Africa, Director of Research at the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs, and a Senior Research Fellow, Research Program Coordinator of the Nordic Africa Institute in Uppsala, and and he has also held various academic fellowships and won various awards at different stages of his career, including the University of Johannesburg's Vice Chancellor's Distinguished Award for Global Excellence and Stature. So, Professor Olukushi, Adebayo, can I ask you to make your input at this point? Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Robbie, and I'm very delighted to be here. And also delighted to say that I'll be joining you at the Wits School in a matter of days, actually, now.
We're counting down the days. We're counting down the days. Look forward to that.
I look forward to that too, yes. Let me also say just how terribly delighted I am that this event is taking place, and I would like to pay tribute to the initiators and all those who have worked very hard to convene us. I think the moment is auspicious, and I see the Reverend Frank Chikane is with us, so I would like through him to convey personal, profound appreciation for what is obviously a widely shared initiative, but he has been one of the moving spirits behind this. And in light of the limited time which we have, and in the interest of ensuring a broad conversation, I will answer in conclusion by saying that if ever there was a time where we needed to have a Pan-African solidarity organization that would link the continent with its diaspora in a meaningful way around a shared political project, including the project of building and consolidating our identity as Africans, this time presents perhaps one of those best opportunities to do so. The Pan-African ideal was born in a context of crisis. And it was the crisis that was spawned by the transfer of human population through slavery from the continent to the so-called New World, out of which a movement that came to be known as Pan-African grew in the diaspora and was brought back to the continent. And I think that over the period since then, we have seen a series of initiatives, not least amongst them, the one that was championed by Marcus Garvey, which we all know from our history books, represented one concrete effort by a pioneering Pan-Africanist to move beyond ideas about the oneness of the African world and the essential unity of that world, to concretize it around a set of actions. And of course, we know also the story of opposition, which Marcus Garvey came against in his effort to drive his action-oriented effort at building Pan-African solidarity, including through business relations. Now, preparatory to this conference, I took a very quick look when I saw the topic allocated to me at the flow of trade between Africa and the Caribbean, which is easily one of our biggest diasporic constituencies, given its history. And it is actually lower than the level of intra-African trade, which in itself is also terribly poor, right? So not only are we not solidarizing and engaging amongst ourselves on the motherland continent, but also between the continent and its diaspora, whatever happens by way of transactions, including of political organization, I will underscore, in the period since the experimentation by Marcus Garvey has tended to be episodic, experimental, and often unsustained, with the consequence that we find ourselves ever so often going back to the drawing board to try to rebuild. And I think one of the challenges, given that I am really without any hesitation in support of the building of a Pan-African movement of solidarity, that one of the first things we need to do is to do an inventory of efforts that have been made in the past, including those that are within our living memory, and try to understand what went wrong, that they were not sustained over a period of time, and what we can do differently to ensure that what comes out of our conversation today, assuming that the idea is endorsed by participants in the meeting, that we can do it differently and in a manner that will endure and make a difference. And I will suggest that perhaps one of the starting points beyond that inventory would be also the convening, which we haven't done also in a very long time. There was a movement when I was in Codesria to bring together intellectuals of Africa and the diaspora, which partly underwritten by Lula in Brazil and Abdoulaye Wade in Senegal and Thabo Mbeki in South Africa. But the moment those personalities left office, that initiative also died. However, one of the things which I think we need to do is to be able to bring together leaders from various sectors of the African world: political, economic, social, academic, activist, artistic, in order to have a meeting of minds around the framing of a vision around which we can construct a political project of solidarity. And I would suggest that one of the lessons of experience is that unless we have that vision, which we share, and build a political project out of it, we are likely to falter if we took the path of a functionalist cooperation that is built, for example, around issues of economic integration. Because those haven't really worked. The only effort of a serious nature that has been made to promote any functionalist integration, so to speak, within the space of the Africa, Caribbean, and Pacific Initiative has actually tended to put us in competition, not in collaboration. And collaboration, including of a functional nature, can only take place where there is a clear political vision that drives it. The European Union, if I may cite that example, was not born in the first instance out of a functionalist cooperation. It was born out of a vision to create a political framework that will ensure that Europe does not annihilate itself with wars, and to emphasize a European identity that is shared regardless of boundaries, and which could constitute the kernel around which everything else can be built. And I would suggest that that is one of the biggest challenges that we need to respond to. Now, of course, when we did the transition from the OAU to the African Union, we also committed ourselves to having the diaspora as the sixth region. Alas, we've not done anything about it. Beyond the launch meeting of the African Union and the first summit that took place in Addis Ababa, where the Prime Minister of, I think, Jamaica came to represent the Caribbean countries, one gets the impression that there has been an absence both of will and of imagination to translate the idea and the ideal of the sixth region into something that is workable. And it is, I think, again, in this context, that the kind of solidarity organization which I propose and which is implicit in the assignment given to this panel must be created, has to also involve a revisiting of the vision around the sixth region of the AU and how to ensure that it becomes actually a meaningful exercise rather than simply one that is put for the fulfillment of all righteousness, but does not in fact translate into any committed political action on our side. And so from that point of view, I think we also at the third level, in taking an inventory, would do well to look at some of the autonomous efforts independent of the African Union, or in spite of the African Union and its sixth region idea, to put content and meaning, but which somehow have not gained enough traction to be able to build that solid bond between Africa, continental, and the sixth region, so to speak. And there's, again, no shortage of experiments. Myself, like others who are, I'm sure, are in the audience, have participated in a number of those meetings to try to see how we can create a kind of people's solidarity amongst the peoples of the continent and of the diaspora. But in the absence of effective political backing and traction, those experiments, with all of the enthusiasm with which they are launched, often suffer from a lack of sustainability. And it is on this score that I think the challenge for us, the easy answer is to say, yes, we do need one for many reasons, which we can enumerate if anybody needs to be convinced as to why we need a Pan-African Solidarity Organization. And Robbie, you touched on some of those. It's the world is in a transition. And it's a momentous period in the history of the world. And previous such transitions haven't favored us, right? In human history, previous such transitions haven't favored us. And unless we organize ourselves, there is nothing to stop any other force that would dominate what would emerge as a new world order to simply consider Africa as the dustbin to be again kicked around, as we have been kicked around under Pax Britannica and under Pax Americana. Thank you very much. Let me stop here.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Adebayo. I think there's a rich set of observations there. I think one of the things you draw attention to is for us to look at the idea of a deepening Pan-Africanism. One, on past experience, you mentioned the idea of an audit, so just reflect on what we did in the past, but also you draw very powerful attention that the way we frame it has to be around the idea of a meaningful solidarity that's not based as a starting point on expedient relationships reduced either to economics or forms of exchange, but it has to be around that big idea, that big project that's going to unify Africa going forward and taking its place in the global world. And I think there's a lot of issues there that I think one can build in and unpack, which I'll can also return to some of the discussion. I just want to note that I think colleagues, French-speaking colleagues, are having trouble kind of getting the translation services activated. I think the team is trying to work on that. Really deep apologies for that. We'll try our best to address that. And then there's just a comment I want to say immediately now is just one of our colleagues in participating has said, I agree with you, that's agreeing with Adebayo. This is needed as soon as possible, the idea of a unifying vision for Pan-Africanism that is meaningful and it's not expedient. Let's put up solidarity to establish connections and make sure it doesn't die again. Yeah, and that pretty much is required for us going forward. So I'm not sure if one of our panelists is now available. Davison Mendes Faustini, Professor Faustino, are you available to do a presentation now? I know there was a connection problem earlier. Excellent. So welcome very much, Professor Faustino. So our next panelist, Davison Mendes Faustino, graduated with a PhD in social sciences at Centro Universitario Fundação Santo André in Brazil. He's currently professor of the graduate program in social work and social policies at the Federal University of São Paulo. He's a member of the Amnesty and Negritude Institute and member of the editorial committee of the Black Words Collections and Dialogues of the Diaspora. He has experience for teaching, research, and community engagement in the areas of Black thought, health of the Black population and psychology, racial relations, capitalism, and racism. And he's also served as a consultant for the United Nations Population Fund, the UNFPA, and as an educator in the Sao Paulo Municipal Department of Education. So he brings a rich set of experiences to bear onto this discussion. And without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Professor Faustino to do his 10-minute presentation. Thank you. Professor Faustino, we can't hear you. Professor Faustino, just indicate in the box if you're having trouble with your mic.
Professor, if the technical team can assist, you see, yeah. he's not in the panel section of the group. So that's why you may, oh, there he is. They have sorted it out.
Okay, perfect. Excellent.
Oh, can I speak?
Yes, yeah. Do go ahead, please. Now. No.
Sorry about that. I was there in another place listening, but I couldn't to speak. I'm so happy for stay here, and I apologize for speaking Portuguese because it's easy for me, and I wish we will be translating for that. Bom dia, boa tarde, boa noite a todas as pessoas. É uma honra e um prazer enorme estar aqui com vocês nessa atividade, falando sobre África e a diáspora africana. Sobretudo, eu fico muito feliz pela possibilidade de pensar as pontes entre esses dois locos geográficos, mas, sobretudo, pensar as possibilidades de unidade que podemos estabelecer. Eu gostaria de começar cumprimentando os colegas da mesa. Eu estou muito feliz por estar aqui, especialmente por estarmos relembrando o Congresso de Manchester, de 1945, e, sobretudo, conversando sobre pontes e redes de colaboração em um diálogo transcontinental, transnacional e pan-africano. Durante muito tempo, quando se falava em diáspora africana, se pensava nos filhos e nas filhas que saíam recentemente do continente. Mas, como Marcus Garvey disse, existe na diáspora uma imensa massa de seres humanos que foram sequestrados de sua pátria-mãe e que estão ansiosos para retornar e retomar o rumo de sua casa. É importante lembrar que o pan-africanismo é uma construção social e transcontinental. Sempre, para os pensadores, mesmo na diáspora, o pan-africanismo sempre teve como eixo ético, político e estético a experiência africana. Os primeiros formuladores do pan-africanismo eram pensadores da diáspora, mas esse pensamento ele encontrou com uma série de experiências e de lutas que já aconteciam no continente africano. No entanto, ainda assim, muitas vezes, para nós da diáspora, a África era rodeada de mistificações, sejam essas mistificações criadas pelos brancos, mistificações criadas pelo racismo, mistificações criadas pelo colonialismo, mas muitas vezes também mistificações também criadas por nós, africanos da diáspora, a partir do nosso distanciamento com esse local de origem. Aí foi possível criar uma série de lutas e agendas de solidariedade transcontinentais. O Congresso de Manchester, de 1945, foi uma grande virada na história do pan-africanismo. Em primeiro lugar, pela presença do Kwame Nkrumah. O Kwame Nkrumah foi uma pessoa decisiva nesse processo, mas também pelo contexto. Estávamos no final da Segunda Guerra, da Segunda Grande Guerra, e esse contexto político favorecia tanto uma mudança nos paradigmas em relação ao que se entendia por pan-africanismo, mas também a possibilidade de novas alianças e alianças construídas em outros termos. Daqui, né, do Congresso de Manchester, que surgem novas perspectivas, como, por exemplo, a centralidade política das experiências e das lutas anticoloniais estabelecidas dentro do continente, algo que até então, quando se falava em pan-africanismo, muitas vezes a centralidade estava na diáspora. Esse momento também vai permitir uma afirmação ética, estética e política de uma perspectiva de autodeterminação. É nesse momento que as independências aparecem como horizonte político para essa autodeterminação. Mas, sobretudo, né, é nesse momento do Congresso de Manchester que as reflexões pan-africanas se traduzem em uma solidariedade que se pauta a partir de uma perspectiva revolucionária. Esse processo ele teve grande influência nas lutas afrodiaspóricas. A gente pode pegar o exemplo do Partido dos Panteras Negras, Black Panther Party, nos Estados Unidos, por exemplo, ou mesmo a influência dos movimentos de negritude no Caribe, na América do Sul, em outros lugares do mundo. Na década de 1970, por exemplo, as lutas anticoloniais africanas influenciaram decisivamente a formação de novas expressões de lutas antirracistas na América Latina e especialmente no Brasil. No Brasil, nós entramos na década de 1970 numa nova fase de organização e de lutas antirracistas, e boa parte desse novo momento é explicado pela influência das lutas de libertação no continente africano. Aliás, não é à toa que o Brasil foi o primeiro país a reconhecer a independência de Angola, porque havia aqui no Brasil, naquele período, uma intensa articulação de intelectuais negros afrodiaspóricos em torno de uma solidariedade, em torno da construção de uma solidariedade transcontinental de luta antirracista, mas também de anti-imperialista, anticapitalista. O que eu quero dizer com isso é que é impossível entender as lutas antirracistas e a agência afrodiaspórica sem entender também a influência que as experiências africanas, que as lutas políticas africanas tiveram sobre a diáspora. Mas, ao mesmo tempo, a própria noção de panafricanismo também é uma noção que se constrói na relação com a diáspora. Então, um desafio que está colocado para nós é pensar em como transcender, em como superar a grande distância que a colonização nos obrigou a vivenciar a partir do tráfico transatlântico. Mais recentemente, com a perda da hegemonia das perspectivas revolucionárias em todo o mundo, inclusive no interior daquilo que se chamava de pan-africanismo, no continente africano, na segunda metade do século XX, vai se assistir uma série de transformações nas noções relacionadas à solidariedade política. A gente vai ter tanto processos de lutas e independências e de construção de alternativas nacionais e populares de Estado, construções alternativas de autodeterminação, mas também iremos assistir a uma intensa luta neocolonial com uma tentativa das ex-metrópoles de sabotar esse processo de autonomia. Mas, ao mesmo tempo, é um momento marcado também por intensas lutas internas dentro do continente africano, lutas que a Chile Mbembe, filósofo camaronês, vai chamar de nativistas, que muitas vezes resultaram também em disputas internas e fratricidas dentro dos territórios nacionais independentes. Ao mesmo tempo, com a conversão, com a transformação com a conquista das independências, o próprio termo pan-africanismo ele passa a ser ressignificado, porque agora a perspectiva deixa de ser uma perspectiva revolucionária para se apresentar como uma perspectiva de gestão dos estados nacionais recém-independentes. E com isso, o próprio termo pan-africanismo passou a se esvaziar do seu sentido, pelo menos no sentido que ele era pensado na Conferência de Manchester. Na diáspora africana, no final do século XX, a palavra pan-africanismo aparecia como uma palavra vaga e não como um horizonte prático e possível sobre o qual a luta poderia ser organizada. Para alguns, o pan-africanismo aparecia como uma perspectiva importante, mas uma perspectiva do passado. É só nos debates africanos em torno do renascimento africano que se retoma as discussões sobre solidariedades transatlânticas entre a África e a diáspora e a possibilidade, inclusive, de repensar qual é o lugar da diáspora nesse projeto de renascimento africano. Algumas perguntas práticas emergem a partir daí. O que queremos fazer do panafricanismo hoje, em um contexto relativamente distinto do pós-guerra? Como articular as diferenças nacionais, religiosas, étnicas, linguísticas, no interior dos projetos coletivos que estamos pensando? Ainda faz sentido falar em emancipação? Qual é o papel da diáspora nesse processo? O atual momento é um momento muito oportuno para nos debruçarmos sobre essas perguntas. E seja lá qual for a resposta, é fundamental criarmos espaços sólidos de cooperação e diálogo para que possamos juntos buscar essas respostas. Para nós, da diáspora, a África ainda se apresenta como um familiar distante. Para alguns, ainda se apresenta como um mito. Francis Fanon alertava que não basta trocar um mito branco por um mito negro. É necessário criar relações de solidariedade concretas que permitam superar as opressões e explorações aonde quer que elas se encontrem. Mas é importante dizer que há uma crescente consciência da necessidade, pelo menos na diáspora e também entre muitos intelectuais africanos, há uma crescente consciência da necessidade de criarmos pontes transatlânticas para pensarmos juntos, não apenas o passado, mas, sobretudo, o futuro. E nesse sentido, é fundamental superar uma série de barreiras, entre elas a língua. Eu queria parabenizar o evento, porque é a primeira vez que eu participo de um evento pan-africano, onde o português aparece como uma língua possível. Estamos falando de línguas coloniais que nos foram impostas, mas muitas vezes há um predomínio do inglês como única possibilidade de contato. No caso brasileiro, por exemplo, o acesso ao inglês só é possível a quem é rico, na maioria das vezes, e isso implica barreiras concretas que precisamos criar e precisamos superar. Pensar na superação implica não apenas em princípios de cooperação, mas em projetos efetivos de cooperação econômica, política e científica. Nesse sentido, é importante dizer que no Brasil, por exemplo, há uma rede muito grande de pensadores antirracistas, de pensadores afrodiaspóricos se articulando, e seria muito importante criar redes de articulação com intelectuais africanos e afrodiaspóricos
Dr.
de outras partes.
Sorry to disturb, Dr. Faustino,
Para
just take a
avançarmos.
minute just to capture. We've just got 15 minutes left, so we could, thank you so much for that. Colleagues, just to deeply apologize, I think we've had some problems with the translation services, but I think it's up and running now, hopefully. I hope you would have got the presentation by our colleague. So thank you very much for that, Professor Faustino. Now, just with urgency of time upon us, colleagues, I do think we probably need to proceed rapidly to the next presenter, which is Professor Pierre Ofudu Adimi of Beninese nationality. He holds a doctorate in international relations from the Faculty of Law of Abdel Malek Essadi University in Tangier, Morocco. Since 2015, he has been a professor of international relations and international cooperation at the University of Tangier and at the High School of Business and Management at Tangier as well. He's also an associate researcher at the Research Center think tank Civic Academy for Africa's Future, CIAAF, based in Cotonou, Benin. And he's the author of several scientific articles as well as collective works, including the last two publications in 2020, The Level of the Church, the Avalis Evangelique Amorik, EEAM. He's very involved in various responsibilities. And between 2010 and 2012, he was parish assistant of the Church of Tangier. And since 2013, he has been the president of the Republic of the Church of Tangier. So very much welcome to Professor Pierre Ofudu Adimi, if you want to do your presentation. And if I can ask Professor Faustino, if you could just come off video, then we can bring in Professor Adimi.
Thank you very much. Can I speak in French? I'm sorry.
Do please feel to present in what you language you're comfortable with, of course.
Okay.
We're Pan-Africanists, so we have many languages. do go ahead.
Ok, thank you very much. Donc, bonsoir.
Professor Adimi, we can't hear your mic at the moment. You're not coming through. Could you just check your mic, please? Do you want to proceed, Prof. Adimi?
Yes.
Do please go ahead. You can make your presentation now.
OK. OK, thank you. Donc, bonsoir à vous tous et à vous toutes. Je suis très honoré ce soir de participer à cette conférence, à ce temps de réflexion, de partage. Honoré. Et je voudrais de cette occasion pour remercier les organisateurs, tous les organisateurs de cette conférence, et en même temps les remercier et les saluer pour la qualité thématique de ce sujet qui est très important pour nous, pour notre continent africain. C'est un sujet qui me touche particulièrement. Moi-même, je fais partie de la diaspora de mon pays, le Bénin, ici au Maroc. Et chaque fois quand mes collègues, mes amis, la diaspora africaine, lorsqu'on se réunit, et on se pose toujours la question de savoir comment est-ce que nous pouvons aider nos pays, comment est-ce que nous pouvons contribuer au développement de nos pays. Et on s'est rendu compte que la diaspora africaine a beaucoup de ressources humaines, beaucoup de potentiel qui sont très peu exploités aujourd'hui. Et donc, qu'à l'issue de cette conférence, on pourra faire de propositions très intéressantes qui vont contribuer, qui vont participer, n'est-ce pas, à changer la tendance que nous observons aujourd'hui. Alors, je me dis que ce serait donc une tragédie historique de continuer à marginaliser la diaspora et de ne pas l'associer au développement du continent. Vous savez que notre continent, l'Afrique, a connu pendant plusieurs siècles des drames, des tragédies. Et à ce titre, je considère que le fait que la diaspora soit marginalisée, c'est une forme de tragédie pour le continent. C'est une forme de perpétuation de cette tragédie. Et alors, pour moi, chaque année, on remarque qu'il y a plusieurs milliers du continent, n'est-ce pas, qui quittent l'Afrique et qui vont dans d'autres continents, qui vont en Europe, qui vont en Amérique, qui vont en Asie pour poursuivre leurs études universitaires. Et si on assiste aujourd'hui au développement, à la croissance de la diaspora africaine hors du continent, c'est une des réponses à cause de la non-disponibilité de possibilités sur le continent d'avoir la formation nécessaire. La plupart de la diaspora africaine qui se trouve en Europe, en Asie, en Amérique, cette diaspora s'est retrouvée hors du continent à cause justement du manque d'infrastructures en termes de formation, en termes de recherche académique et scientifique, qui explique justement la croissance de ces diasporas. Bien sûr que, en tant que continent, je ne suis pas en train de militer ou bien d'appeler à ce que nous soyons fermés sur nous-mêmes, soyons sur nous-mêmes, mais en même temps, je suis en train de l'absence, n'est-ce pas, d'un cadre nécessaire de formation pour que la jeunesse africaine puisse se former, pour que la jeunesse africaine puisse avoir un cadre pour s'émanciper sur le plan intellectuel. Et vous savez que depuis quelques années, la Banque mondiale, selon les estimations de la Banque mondiale, la contribution de la diaspora africaine s'élève à peu près 40 milliards de dollars, 40 milliards de dollars. Et donc, c'est plus que l'aide publique au développement. C'est plus que l'aide publique au développement. Et on sait justement que cette aide publique au développement est en train de baisser d'année en année. Et donc, pour pour moi, la diaspora africaine doit constituer en quelque sorte un maillon, doit constituer un élément, un facteur essentiel pour catalyser, provoquer le développement sur le continent. Parce que lorsqu'on étudie la sociologie de cette diaspora, on se rend compte qu'il y a des ingénieurs, il y a des architectes, il y a des médecins, il y a des avocats, pour la plupart des temps, des personnes très brillantes. Et on se rend compte justement que lorsqu'ils vont en Europe, et les pays européens, asiatiques, américains s'appuient justement sur leur qualité de capacité intellectuelle et on leur change de nationalité. On leur change de nationalité. On considère que ce sont des personnes qui contribuent au développement du pays dans lequel ils ont été formés. C'est là que réside la tragédie dont j'ai fait part tout à l'heure. Le fait que ces milliers de jeunes Africains partent chaque année, ils ne reviennent pas, et très peu de pays ont de systèmes qui permettent justement à ces diasporas-là de revenir et contribuer ainsi au développement de leur pays. Voilà pourquoi la société civile, telle que cette structure qui a organisé cette conférence, on doit davantage militer, on doit davantage faire en sorte qu'il y ait une passerelle entre la diaspora et les pays d'origine. Il y a quelques jours, mes amis et moi, la question, on se demandait comment est-ce que nous qui sommes à l'extérieur de nos pays, on peut contribuer, on veut contribuer. La corruption, la mauvaise gouvernance et les mauvaises pratiques développées à l'échelle de nos pays font en sorte que justement les diasporas n'arrivent pas à contribuer à sa juste valeur au développement, à participer au développement du pays. Et donc, on doit davantage agir et trouver des moyens et créer des passerelles pour que la diaspora donc, puisse contribuer. On doit changer cette donne, c'est très important. Et donc, j'ai fini mon temps, hein. Je suis en train de lire les commentaires. Est-ce qu'il me reste encore quelques minutes?
Okay. Yes, thank you very much, Professor Adimi. So we've only, unfortunately, colleagues, got 4 minutes left for the session. And I would suggest at this stage, if I may, in the 4 minutes that we have left, I think I would like, because of the strategic question that we are gathering here together at this time is to see how we can deepen the Pan-African networks that currently exist and how we can translate that in a deepened framework of solidarity. And just to go back to Professor Adebayo's initial comments, how can this move beyond something that is just in some way self-serving to be something that's deeply meaningful? And there, the idea of why we want to constitute ourselves as a Pan-African network, linking the continent with the diaspora, becomes absolutely essential. It's the power of the idea. And I think that is our starting point. And to build on that starting point is also an observation here by Rev Chakani, which I'd like to read out, which I think is important in terms of when we walk away from this engagement, that we can think about something tangible to move forward with in our exploratory discussion that we've had, with the excellent presentations we've had. And Rev Chakani says, based on the limitations of time, which of course now we're out of time, unfortunately, I propose that the conference agree on considering exploring the possibility of establishing a global Pan-African network after consulting with all existing regional and international Pan-African entities and networks. This may involve consultative meetings and conversations to solidify the political project that will make such a network sustainable, and that this exploratory work be completed within a year from now. So Rev Chakani is really giving us a very concrete way of moving forward to take through all the concerns that have also been raised by the various speakers about how we move from a process of disunification within our own context and in sets of relationships, and where our agendas are driven in some respects by some of these northern interests. Partly it's a process of cooptation, and to say, well, let's re-ground it back into our own realities at the moment, and let's have that conversation, let's have that engagement with the impetus to establish a global African network. And I think Adebayo's comment about the idea being very essential to that is very important. And I think a corollary to his idea, if I may say so, is the relationship between our intellectuals and our thinkers, if you will, and our political class. And how do we deepen that link of ideas that can allow for a flourishing of a Pan-Africanist thought that is not reducible just to the expedient connections based on the economic, but is actually about building a larger idea of connections. So, colleagues, I'm really afraid that we're in fact out of time now. Unfortunately, we're not able to return to the discussants because you need to return to plenary now. But I think there's a clear idea on the table. I think this is the idea that we need to take back to plenary, this idea about how do we actualize the global Pan-African network. I think it connects through, in terms of a concrete proposal moving forward, it connects to all the speakers in terms of saying how, on the basis of what we have observed, how do we make this Pan-African network a reality and connect the continent and the diasporic communities in much more tangible ways. And I would say that that maybe is the platform for us to go forward into plenary to see how do we concretize that. And Rev Chakani has suggested a way in which we do that we spend this next year doing the contact work regionally and globally to get this idea more firm. And I think for me, part of that plenary discussion has to talk about the relationship between our intellectuals and our political class, because I think it's that connection that would ensure that we don't have a breakdown to something that is just expedient based on narrow kind of concerns around the economic, obviously crucial, but that maybe is not the starting point. But yes, I just want to thank again the wonderful panelists and the rich engagement. We only had a limited amount of time, I'm afraid, to engage in this, but we will have a plenary where we can extend and deepen some of the discussion that we've had at this point. I just want to thank everyone, also the participants, for coming into this engagement. And I think what we've done here with this discussion, we've created a platform to take it further, and hopefully in the plenary, we can pick up on these ideas expressed here in more concerted ways. And I do also want to offer participants an opportunity to look at the chat, because you can see there's a range of comments there, which time just makes it impossible for me to present at this point. But I want to thank everyone for participating, and it's been an honor for me to chair this discussion. And thanks to everyone.